Hey, how's everybody doing? This is part two of our Bill of Rights and discussing the first, second, third, all first 10 amendments to the United States. And this is, based off of, you know, this here, which states the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. It spells out Americans' rights. And that's what we're going to go over today on part two is the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment protects the rights to keep and bear arms. So, and we're going to get into a very different. We're going to bring up our little our documents on this, and here's the original statements of the Constitution here. And some people are going to be a little upset because I'm going to put out two theories here that people have argued for decades, if not 2 centuries. And the actual wording is the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution reads, a well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This language has created a very different thing for people because their arguments over it, and everybody doesn't understand, I guess, the basic arguments of it. And those arguments here are that people have one theory, and that is right here. Let me try and get this again. Right here. And that theory is individual constitutional rights for citizens. And that is stating that the theory is that all citizens of the United States of America have the right to the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And that is, the one theory. Our company and things, we kind of lean towards those types of values and things where, citizens have that right to a secure, to secure a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the other theory that some people don't get is, they use the regulated militia, which is military force, things like that. And that's, under that theory there, it is the fact that I had here, the rights right here. that it should be left up to the local, state, or federal body to have and keep and bear arms. Now, that's the other theory. It's called the collective rights theory, which they state that local, state, and federal governments shall have the right, police, military, things like that, National Guard, have a right to bear arms, but the citizens do not. And that's what, when it comes to this argument over guns, it's those two theories that are laid out and they're always argued against. It's a theory of, governments, police, certain people have this right. And usually those people that argue on um, the local, state, and federal government only has the right to legally own and keep firearms, and citizens do not have a right. That theory is usually controlled or argued by a bureaucratical elite that feel comfortable. And I'm not going on some Marxist communist thing, but that's, usually the people that have that bureaucratical elitism usually have an argument where stating kind of like the Nazis or Soviets or China, for instance, France. Um, there are a lot of places. I think Australia had some issues there where they state that the government, police, force, SWAT, any of the people that are in government positions or government jobs have a right. The citizens do not. And that's where this individual right theory comes in and says, no, there is a right for citizens to protect themselves from criminals or people that want to cause harm to them, or the government goes, out of control, like I stated, China, Russia, um, France had some issues in their history. If you go back and look at their revolutions, they kind of, to me, committed genocide on a religious side quite a few times. And also I don't know if people in France are going to be a little bit upset about that, but oh well. Truth hurts. And that's just, people have to understand that. The truth hurts. But, Nazis, Soviet Union, they all did the same thing too. They stripped the rights of firearms from their citizens and then turn around and had no problems putting what people would phrase it genocide, or put it in context of historical arguments of genocide and internment camps. That's usually how those start. They don't. When I look at when we check history stuff, it's usually first stripping the guns, and it's happened in America over 200 years ago. They stripped guns from, free slaves, and then they turn around and they did horrifying things. It's just a fact of law that whoever is stripped of weapons has a threat or a issue where those people that stripped them could turn harm against them because they have no way of protecting them. And the same with the criminal element. Criminal element has the same thing. If citizens or people, certain districts, state, local areas that don't have guns in practice, that's how it goes. Is whoever doesn't have something to defend themselves, they can fall prey to the criminal or bad side of the human nature. And that's where people don't want to acknowledge that at all. And this is why a lot of people on, because it states as you go down in here under a lot of these cases, um, in the Supreme Court, they've actually pushed and given more of the argument where I said, you know, people have the individual right theory. And that's where people don't understand is the Constitution is created and the amendments were created. But how do you get it? Because most people, and this is how all has, anybody does it if you state imperial or constitutional or anything, you have to understand, are you arguing for an individual citizen or are you arguing for a bureaucracy? And this is, where the Second Amendment argument ends up. The bureaucracy prefers to keep the rights under that, and the individual right theory goes for individual rights. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not standing on Republican, Democrat, either way. This is just constitutional beliefs. And to my beliefs, citizens have in America, under their Constitution, as states, the secure of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And people do not usually like this, but this is how it's set. Now, if anybody has any comments or criticism towards it, they can go ahead. But these are the two theories that have always played out. And this is under the United States Constitution. Arguments for the Second Amendment is individual right theory and the bureaucratic right theory, to me, is, and that's kind of the argument there. And I'm not trying to put into like this, you know, class warfare. It's not. It is, as I stated in the last video, the Constitution in the United States is the longest one. And it's been set and written, and people have sat around and tried to interpret and understand it through modern times. And this is what people are discussing. And this is the theory systems. It has always swung in individual right theories favor under the Second Amendment, but that could change because bureaucratic, um, and it depends on district. It's not a state by state, it's a more of a district. One mayor could say, I don't want it in my district and ban it. And population too. If there's a lot of more populated areas, there's probably going to be a restriction on it. The Supreme Court usually favors, some regulations. on that, and some people don't like that. That's, the argument and discussions that people must have in their state and in the district and communities that they live in. And these are, why people have problems is they don't understand the individual right theory, and then you have the collective right theory, where one side says that police, state, and federal government has all the rights to this stuff, or the Second Amendment at least, and these citizens do not have the right to bear or to have any kind of guns or arms. And that's where, problems like Australia, France, um, Soviet Union, problem with Jews in the internment camps, things, people losing these certain rights. And people don't like this conversation because when it comes down to it, does a individual have faith in itself or in its government? And that's where people have to sit, is when everything hits the fan, will somebody, you know, pray for the government or police officer to save them, or defend their own life? And that's, the theory why those two theories and the individual rights theory usually outweighs it, because individual citizens usually have a better chance of defending themselves, even though people criticize the more rights under Second Amendment is put up, the more the individual is able to protect themselves. The community is able to protect themselves. Crime ends up turning away from it because, and some population can be argued in there, but crime usually turns away from people that are willing to defend their property, their land, their happiness, and prosperity. And those are the reasons why individual right theory stands a better argument, because of bureaucratical or um, people cannot depend on a government that is miles away and has no chance of getting there. Police stations that are miles away, nobody's going to get there in time. So when those problems occur under the natural human um, theory, it usually plays out as a constitutional setup where individuals usually come out on top instead of waiting for salvation. And I'm not saying, people use salvation as a great, it sounds good, but when it comes down to it, somebody's sitting on their own or by themselves, no one in sight to help. The individual theory ends up favoring them, because then they have a chance to defend their livelihood. So, let me know how you liked the video. Comment down below if I missed anything, but these are, I kind of want to give a good rough estimation and discussion over this, and that's, trying to get some people to understand, what the constitutional theories are, because constitutional theories are how they are given or taken from an individual. And that's, it don't matter if it's a citizen or a bureaucrat. They'll play to whatever they want to or whatever understandings they have. So I don't blame people for not knowing the arguments. Their own problems are they're just not well up to date on this stuff. That's why we were trying to create the um, 10 contents of this, and hopefully we don't get banned for it. But these are the information that people need to look into if we're gonna argue or not argue, but have a discussion about them with people. And that's, like I said, I'm more of an individual theory guy. Individual people have rights and responsibilities and respect for themselves and should, try and find a way to build that in their community. So, but let us know at the bottom how you like the video and stuff.